Welcome back to another episode of BD Radio. We've got a special guest in, our first ever guest, a long-time friend of mine. I'll let him introduce himself, but basically counsellor, author, podcaster, our resident expert in all things mental health is Tom Ahern. Welcome, Tom.
Mate, very good to be here. Yeah, I was just thinking we became mates at what, 13?
Yeah,
12?
year 7 for
Yeah.
sure at school.
3 months, eh? Yeah. No, it's been a while. Loved it. Loved every minute of it.
And also my partner, Dan, is back.
Oh wow, first time as your partner. Thanks.
Got him, aren't you? Haven't I said that?
No.
Co-host,
Okay, yeah.
de facto.
Primarily.
Stop it!
She hates that word. De facto.
Yeah.
She goes,
Strange word.
yeah, I'm like, this is my de facto. Alright. So basically we just wanted to get Tom's insight. So anyone who's listened to an episode before, all four of you, will know that we talk a lot about behavioural change, habit change, like changing your identity to then suit, I guess, the goals you have. So as we all know, and we've all here worked in the fitness industry before, like what on paper looks like 1 + 1 = 2 is actually just extremely complex. And I think it can be hard, and I know it was hard for me as a young trainer to kind of wrap my head around the fact that it's just like, why can't people just do what I tell them? So I guess we've got Tom along, and he's going to give us, I guess, a little bit more of the scientific theory behind the actual why of like why people can or possibly can't change, and maybe as well share a little bit of insight into how you can work through that either with or without a coach. So I guess we'll start by, Tom, I'll get you to give us a little bit of background on how you sort of found yourself in this space, because I know that we both started in the fitness industry at the same time, and have sort of branched off into, I think, areas that we both probably struggled with as teenagers, and they're like at the complete opposite ends of the sphere. So I'll let you go to start.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks, mate. Yeah, I mean, I never wanted to be a counsellor. You know, I was like, when I was thinking about becoming an astronaut or like an AFL player, I was like, counsellor, are you serious?
Cool.
Yeah, that's not cool. I'm not going to get any girls being a counsellor. But I don't know, I kind of found it as, to a large extent, working on my own mental health, because it just took a severe decline in my early 20s. Some of that was mixed in with just going too far into psychedelics, and then also just with other circumstances in my life, my parents divorcing and me coming to realise that I actually wasn't good enough to be an AFL player, which was just who I was. I was very ignorant of that fact, and when that was, I tried my luck at VFL to get to their development squad, and the guy said, not this year kind of thing. I just took that as like,
It's
okay,
like the most polite way ever
Yeah.
of saying like,
You suck.
like I don't, well, yeah.
It was though, but this is the thing, right? Because he said to me, we'd love you to come back next year, but we don't have a place for you this year. And it was as though he had just amputated my left leg. Like, it was just unbelievably painful,
Mm.
And I think the reason why it was so painful was because I knew it was true. I just didn't want to be aware of that. I didn't want to see it. I knew, I was living this lie that I could somehow make it. Like, in a perfect world, maybe after 35 years, like a Podsy Adley, I can come back and get there.
Just get drafted
Big
at
change.
32.
Yeah, 48. But it was necessary, and then there was a lot of stuff going on around that time that just I led to this kind of sense of depression and anxiety. And a big thing for me was obsessive compulsive disorder. So I developed these interesting kind of fear compulsions and things. But the past, my 20s so far, I'm 27 now, it's just been a result of me trying to pick up the pieces to find something that works well for me. And then, what became of that me search, just studying the mind obsessively, there's a bit of irony there initially, became deep love to help people do the same. So that's how I found counselling.
Yeah, it's funny that how you say how much of a struggle the early 20s were, because we were still close at that stage.
Oh, yeah.
And I look back now and I'm like, yeah, like I reckon I can see some instances where maybe you didn't have the walls up as much, and I could see that was like, oh yeah, that was a moment. But at the time, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And I'm still fairly blasé as
I was about to say, can I
person.
step in here? You're pretty oblivious to
Yeah, and
a
I
lot of
was
things.
completely oblivious at the time.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
we saw each other almost every day.
every day.
Yeah, wow.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was literally every day. We'd train non-stop together. But I also think that I needed that. Like, I needed a friend like you at the time just to...
Just a complete idiot.
well, just to pull me in sometimes. Like, I think it was necessary. And there were some other people in my life that I was like... I mean, you have friends for different purposes,
Yeah.
you know? And there were my friends that I could really talk to this stuff with. And I'm not saying that I couldn't talk to you about that, but it was just like I needed some stability.
Bloke to break
Yeah,
the ice
exactly.
and just not care.
Yeah.
Exactly. And everything, no
Other
matter
people
what I
have
said, will be
Told
fine.
me that as well.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Is
that's
that-
one of your best characteristics is that you're very, very stable for the most part. The only, and I've said to you this before, but the only time I've seen you in the trenches was a specific time between you guys, you know?
Yeah.
And that was lovely because I was like, wow, shit, Dan's definitely the one, you know? Because I'd never seen you like, dude, I haven't eaten in 4 days. I'm like, wow, he's on here. Am I holding space for Ben? This is bizarre.
It was a week and I lost 5 kilos.
Yeah, it was the best diet I've ever seen.
Just heartbreaking.
We're obviously going to be promoting this at the end of that.
Guys, break up with your spouse
Yeah.
just for 6 weeks
Yeah.
and be shredded.
Yeah, it's a good challenge. Yeah. But that was I really needed that stability in my life, and I definitely got that from you for sure.
All right, so I guess that's our history. Now to the crux of the conversation. So we all know that like there's people we've worked with, and I guess as a trainer you can kind of, and it's hard not to do this, but you can take it personally if a person succeeds or not.
Cool.
So we all have our favorites, and they're typically our favorites because like we vibe with them, we're similar kinds of people, and what we tell them they implement. And it's like, you know, why can't everyone just be like Tom? Like I tell him to jump, he says how high. And there's also clients where it's like they're so different to us that it's like, God, how do I break through to this person, and how can I get them to see that weight loss isn't everything, like it's about feeling good. And then everyone says, oh well, that's because it's not a problem for you. Like you're not overweight, you're a trainer, you enjoy training. And it's like, people are shocked and say like, we don't enjoy training all the time. Like it's hard for everyone, and everyone just has their separate struggles. So like, what sort of stuff do you, like, how do you know what questions to ask people after a short amount of time with them? Like, is there almost like a process that you run through and you almost like typecast their personality, like, oh, this is like this, I'm going to use this?
I think the first thing to do is to find out why. You know, that's a very cliche thing to say, but people will say why, and very quickly you realize it's not actually what they want. It's some kind of extrinsic idea, or this person's doing it, therefore, you know, keeping up the Joneses. We're inhabited by social desires because we can't get off our phones. As one example, we see the way people live all the time, and you know, there's a lot of unconscious biological signaling. Like even just a smile is like, oh, what are they doing that I'm not doing? You know, it's so unconscious, and it's so sneaky. So I think getting to the core of why someone would actually want to lose weight is or tone up or whatever they want to do is so important. And it's important not only for you as a trainer or me as a counsellor, for example, but for them as well. Because one thing you firstly have to recognize is if the program or the goals aren't working, then obviously there's a discrepancy between what outcome they want and how they're acting. Exactly right. So the difference between intrinsic worth and extrinsic worth, you know, why do you want to do something? Because do you really want a six-pack? Like, what's that? Why would that be good if you have 4 kids? Like, do you just want to get a squat so you can play with them and not hurt your back? Yeah. You know, I think that's a really important conversation.
Yeah. One thing that really interests me is, do you think people know their why?
No, I don't. I don't think I know my way.
Yeah, I was about to ask you, because sometimes people will tell us something and I know that
I
know that that's not true. Like I can just tell by what they've said, and I'm like, okay, how do I delicately say it's not because of that, it's because of this, without them
being
crying
offended,
or being like, this guy's a dick, or, you know, this and that. And it's sort of like, they can tell you why, and it's almost like, all right, I'm going to ask him again in a month.
Yeah.
You know, after this, sort of like, we have their trust a
and
bit more.
And it is about, us building that relationship.
Yeah, totally.
Because it, like, conversations we have initially with people is nothing like
the conversations we have after 12
4 weeks
months.
later. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
It's incredible, that shift, and that's I love that. That's probably my favourite thing about what we do.
Well, I mean, the more you know, the more you're able to help. So, and people will eventually get there. Sometimes people are an open book and they come in and they tell you exactly why, and you're just like, oh my God, like this person's just laid out their life, you know?
Absolutely, yeah.
And other people are really guarded, and they're the clients that you think, like, I don't even know if they enjoy training.
Yeah.
And then upon the opportunity to provide feedback, they're like, love this place, 10 out of 10, and you'll be like, what?
Oh, you'll be like, wow, that's
that person,
surprising.
God, I thought they hated us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we act without knowing what we're doing or why we're doing, why we're doing it. And I think, to your point, Dan, like, do people know their why? Why changes all the time, all the time. And that's why rapport is so important, because you can build this up with, there's a real trust between client and trainer. And then eventually from that trust, you're like, okay, this person isn't just going to expose me with all my vulnerability that I'm giving them. Now we can calmly unpack layers of awareness so that I can find out why I'm doing what I'm doing,
I wasn't even sure I knew my why until I had what I wanted.
Yeah.
So, like, as the only reason I ever went to the gym was to lose weight, because I was like just the overweight kid who loves sport, and I'm like, I want to look like the bloke on Men's Health.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then learn the 8 ways to give her an orgasm on the next page, which was obviously awesome.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Hey, I read that same magazine.
Yeah, that's what those magazines are. They're absolute trash. But it's
I only got to level 1.
Never got the chance to try any of them. But it's like,
exactly.
It's like, up until I had what I wanted and I was happy, like, and it's taken ages, right? And it's like, I'm happy with the way I look now, that it's actually like, well, I'm still training. Like, I'm still eating well. I'm still enjoying what I do. Maybe that wasn't the real reason that I actually liked it. And it's probably only been the last 12 months where I'm like, oh, actually, like, I can think of a number of things in my past where I'm like, oh, this is important for me to help people do this. And it's my own experiences.
But like Tom was just saying, like, that was your why, and you're saying you don't think you knew that until the time. Like,
I guess your why can change as well.
And now you've had a massive shift in your why.
Yeah.
Like, we talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Circumstances as well. And I think that's a really good important point as well. I think we live in this world now where people are obsessed with this idea of, like, finding the true you and authenticity and all that sort of stuff. And that's brilliant, but anytime you're dealing with absolutes, there's going to be some issues there. And if someone says to you, you can clearly see, for example, that they're really anxious and they use the gym as a way to distract themselves from a terrible situation at work, for example, go with them. If that's what they're doing and it's working for them and they're getting value from it, then that's all they need. If
as
they
long
want
as
to
it's
start,
not unhealthy.
exactly right. The issue is to come full circle. Your question is alluding to the idea of people we're working with, and they want one thing, but their actions are showing us that they either don't want to do it, they can't do it, or they want another thing, for example. That's when the conversation needs to occur.
Yeah. So is there something you do with your clients that helps them identify their why?
Yeah, so we do that over time. I think one thing that can be really powerful is having a look at a human being as a mammal. So they've studied motivation in rats, for example, and we know that we're motivated primarily through either pain or pleasure. And they've done this in labs. They'll put a rat in a cage, they'll attach a spring to its tail, they'll put some food at the end of the cage, and they'll measure the strength of the pull on the spring to as a way to gauge how motivated it is by the pleasure. The pleasure system in the brain, the dopaminergic system. And it's like, okay, that rat right now really wants that food, for example. Then what they can do, so that's a really good framework to guide for help someone. This is who you could be if ... right? If you lost this weight or you put this muscle on.
Yep.
Another factor that we forget in this day and age, because we can distract ourselves from it, is pain. So the other thing that they did with the rats is they would waft cat odor behind it, which is inherent to their structure. You know, they are afraid inherently of cats, and they would waft it, and it would pull the string like you wouldn't fucking believe. So if you are motivated by both pain and pleasure, you're far more likely to get your goals. And I think it's a difficult conversation to have with people in this day and age, because I don't know, for whatever reason, we just don't like that side of the conversation. But sometimes you got to be like, hey, what's going to happen to you if you keep doing this for another 3-5 years? And if you can really have that conversation after you've built the rapport and say, look, you know, are you going to be around? What are your kids going to think of you? That fear and that pain can be incredibly motivational.
Yeah, I also sometimes think like I'm worried about having that conversation with someone because I don't really have the tools to address it. Like I know about proteins, carbs, fats, squats. I don't know about you like all the stuff that you are inherently afraid of. I'm like, I don't know if I can unpack that. You know, like, am I making it worse by bringing it out? You know, so
I was about to say sometimes I probably more often than you, Ben, have some hard conversations with people, and it leaves them quite emotional, and sometimes I do worry about them, you know, leaving the building like in a negative headspace.
Totally.
Yeah. And you know, you talk about pleasure and pain. Like one thing I think I see all the time is people can put themselves in a physical pain, like in the gym, like they can train hard, and that mental pain, I think. Yeah. Just until you said it now, I've never thought about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've got obviously some issues with that, because I think even just from my own experience, born into a world that valued happiness so much, you know, the pursuit of happiness, and I just don't think that's what life is about. It's, you know, pain is inevitable, unavoidable, and worthwhile, so that we know what happiness feels like. You know, if you want to get the goal, you have to slay the dragon. And I think when we talk about having a confronting conversation with someone, what I do in my counselling work is I try to leave people with tools, so they're not just a mess after it, because it is confronting. It's going to be confronting. Yeah. If you are going to be motivated by fear, it's not going to feel very good. Yeah. So if you say to someone, if you get them to write like a future journal, for example, something I do, you know, get people to write what their life could be like if nothing changes, which is very confronting. Yeah. You know, I don't like doing that myself. Yeah. But if you say, hey, look, remember, we're doing this so that you will be inclined to achieve what you actually want to achieve. Yeah. Remember, like, it's confronting, yes, of course, but it's confronting so as that you change your position. Yeah. It's not just like, hey, this is who I am, I'm a useless mess. Yeah. You know, we're on your side. Yeah. We want you to do this work.
Like, please try this exercise to make you feel terrible.
Yeah, exactly.
See how it goes.
Exactly. But and then making the goals challenging, but not too challenging after that. The amount of fulfillment people get from that, you know, like as a practical example, dealing with someone with addiction issues, you know, heavy drinker, drinks, mostly binges on the weekends. One night of sobriety is a massive win, and then really validating their experience, like, oh, by the way, because they're so up and about over it, they want to start seeing the pain pleasure principle apply to them, you know. Yeah. And it's incredible knowing that we can actually change with those frameworks, you know. So I think it's a great question, Dan, like, how do I just not leave people in an anxious, just depressed mess? It's like, well,
help me, Tom.
Exactly. Yeah, well, but you've helped them navigate the truth of where they're at, and then you've given them the tools so that now they know how to fish.
Yeah. I think lots of people who come to us are initially motivated by pain, because no one really has everything going on, the family, the house, the car, and goes, you know what I need? To sweat it out at the gym for 3 hours a week. Like, it's not... Yeah.
It's generally not the primary motivator.
Yeah, there's something that, you know, they've seen a photo of themselves and they went, oof, you know, I've added a bit of weight.
I've been in the paddock.
Yeah, but it's like people initially come, I think, because of that negative experience, or they haven't seen their friend in 6 months and they like made a quip about their weight and I was like, oh man, you know. So I think that like that initial motivator is pain, but I mean, if it's purely just pain to start, like it
Absolutely.
typically wears off.
Totally.
Yeah,
Totally.
and like we know that when people say it's a weight loss goal and that's all it is and that's the most important thing, even after we've sort of tried to, I guess, expand it, is they can be hard to continue to motivate once they sort of internally realize but not actually vocally recognize how shallow that is.
I think I completely agree. I think it's a last resort. I kind of work 80-20. I think pleasure is really good, and you can call it pleasure or purpose, whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know, potential. Like, what will your life be like if you do this work? It's a
Yeah.
very enlivening thing to ponder. If you're not getting anywhere, the fear thing can help too, because it's just. But you don't want to live in there. You don't want to live in that shit, because it's like, well, what are you doing now? You know, and it leads to burnout.
It was draining.
Oh,
I was
super
about
draining.
to say, I think they're the people that, like, and we've both spoken about it before, like that we've both been in that place where, like, you just overtrain, like that fear just kind of takes over.
Yeah.
And then eventually you get to the point you're like, well, what am I doing? Like, and now Ben and I exercise like in a positive mind compared to always being in that negative mindset and feeling broken absolutely all the time. And we do see that in our clients and trying to get them to have that mental shift. Like,
Sometimes I ask
it's
our guys,
huge.
I'm like, when you're doing a hard set or like a 10-minute AMRAP and it's getting tough, like, what's your self-talk like? Because I think often that can tell you a lot about a person's motivation. Is like, you know, you're doing great, you know, 3 more to go. Like, that's like inherently positive.
Yes.
Or like, you know, you're a slob, you're slow, you're this. And I'm like, well, that was me for sure. Like,
Yeah.
you know, like, you should be able to do better, blah, blah, blah. And it still motivates me more now, but like, I know what it is. Like, I have an understanding of like, oh no, that's just like, if I'm trying to go really hard, that's what I tap into, but I don't live there. You know, as you said, it's incredibly draining.
Yeah, and I think pain and pleasure are good for, like, you know, macro frameworks of, like, you know, what's life going to be like then, what's life going to be like if. And then another thing that really I like is getting to a place, I suppose, where, you know, the behaviour is starting to shift, and then you're leading into maintenance. Like, how can it be fun? Like, otherwise, why are you doing it? You know, so many people are like, oh, for me, in my world, it's like, oh, you know, should I meditate? It's like,
If
do you want to?
Do you want to?
Yeah. It's the same question as, like, you know, do
Like,
I
it's
need
not-
a car? It's like,
yeah.
well, if you want to drive somewhere, you do. Like, you
like
just have fun.
Like, it's not important.
No,
And
it depends on what your goal is.
Well, I mean, I guess the saying is don't sweat the small stuff.
Exactly.
You know, it's like, we know, like, nutritionally, right? It's like, if your energy balance is okay and you're sort of close to getting enough protein most days, don't stress about too much else. You know, like, oh, I have fruit after dinner. Is that okay? It's
Yeah.
like, yeah, of course. You know, like,
Is it good?
It's like, you know, every full moon when the werewolves are out, I have Cocoa Pops.
Yeah.
I'm like, sweet.
And I
I'm like,
inject sage.
Yeah, it's like all good. And there is garlic all over the house because the vampires can't come in. Like, I think sometimes we get hung up on the, you know, on the small stuff rather than just that continued, you know, like, you're in a healthy place.
Yeah.
Good habits, good behaviors, like, you're going to be just fine.
Yeah.
And I think lots of people, definitely in our space, I don't think they quite realise how big that range is. Like, it's either, you know, it's a continuum. It's not unhealthy, healthy. It's like there's unhealthy, healthy, and then there's that huge space in between. And it's like, we just need to move a little bit closer towards healthy rather than just black and white.
Yeah. So can we go back to that shifting from that negative headspace to the positive? So we've all been there. So we've all, like, trained our butts off in a negative headspace, and now I
Train
feel
harder in that headspace.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. True.
But now I
But get 30% of the results.
Yeah.
Like, not as healthy, for
Yeah.
sure.
Do you think that we have all had that shift because we are very confident in our why? Now.
For me, it was, for me, I broke. So I was forced to change because my knee just blew out, you know, and I wasn't. So the physical trauma there led to the change. Like, I was just going down this road, and I was like, you know, it's such a good question. This comes up all the time in mental health and psychology. It's like, at what point are we ever able to stop ourselves? Like, do we have to have a traumatic experience for things to change?
Or does someone have to do it for you?
Does someone have to do it for you? Yeah. I don't know. I actually don't know, because everything that I see is a result of traumatic experience. And people come to me and they're like, oh, my life is in ruins. So I'm like, okay, how can we take the preventative approach there? I don't have the answer. I really don't, you know.
So yours was a traumatic event. I think mine was more a realization.
Yeah.
Of like how... So it's complete opposite. Like nobody told me anything. I can't even pinpoint a moment where my mindset changed. But I think it was more just like a slow realization over time of how much control I actually had over outcomes.
Yes.
And specifically what I chose to do with myself.
Yes.
So can't control anyone else, obviously. Like I can try and influence and help, but at the end of the day, they are going to do what, they want.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, actually, if I just do what I know is right, be a little bit more accountable to myself, then I can actually change. And I think that's probably what my, moment was, So
gradual
like, actually,
awareness.
like you're in control.
Yeah.
So just do it.
Yeah, one of two people I know.
Stop blaming anyone else and just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're one of two people I know that is the case. Everyone else I know,
is
100% I'd put it down to a traumatic experience.
Yeah. And I think this is, again, like, I think gradual awareness, slowly realizing, okay, this isn't actually working, because it's difficult for us to look at ourselves objectively.
It's a lot more of a slow process.
It's a slow process.
I started in the gym at 15, and I would say maybe 6 months ago, I was like, oh yeah, I can do it.
Yeah.
So that's like 11
just
years.
Hammering it,
Yeah, and I was just
snatch pulls every day.
Slamming my head into a brick wall over and over.
Yeah.
Enjoying it, but like, God, I should probably be a little bit leaner.
Yeah.
It's like,
exactly.
Exactly. Like, why isn't this working for me like it works for everyone else?
Yes. It's all them. Driving the wrong way down the freeway.
Yeah.
What are they doing?
It's like, actually, they're just doing it for long enough, you moron. I'm like, okay, maybe I should do it for a bit longer and just be a little bit tougher on
Get
myself.
rejected by one girl. It's all girls.
And I probably...
That was literally me, by the way.
And I probably went a bit hard at the start as well, before, like, just pull it back a little bit. Let's be a little bit more, measured, I guess. Rather than just all or nothing.
I think that's the only other way we can do it, because we don't want to have to get to a stage where life is in ruins. It's I literally can't do anything but change. You don't want that, So like gradual exposure, which is actually a psychological form of therapy as well.
And I think it's like for clients who are listening who's sort of like feeling a bit lost, or like it's all like we're all so different that there's no right or wrong way. It's just that when you get there, you'll know you're there. You know, so if you haven't had the traumatic experience and you're still sort of searching for that, like I haven't quite struck the right sort of mindset and not everything's clicking yet, like, and it's as cliched as it is, like the only way you can fail is if you stop. So like it's all just part of the experience. Yeah,
we said that last week.
But
it's so true. But one thing we are in control of, which is what you were talking about before, Tom, like what we actually expose ourselves to. So like our phones.
Oh, social media.
My God, I keep telling people, like, if that makes you feel bad, unfollow them.
Totally.
Like that is not helping you. Surround yourself with the good stuff. If I looked at my Instagram feed 5 years ago compared to today.
Drastically different.
Huge changes.
Massive.
I no longer follow like a lot of athletes and that kind of thing. I've kind of moved
more towards education.
More towards education. But
So this is a good point.
It stresses me.
It's like awareness, right? So I think we've just nailed on the head like how to avoid the traumatic issue. It's you can actually surround yourself with the 5 of any group you want now. If you just follow the content of people that live the life the way you want to live. If people have like a good body, but also follow them, and then you'll start to see like because there's a difference, because you could follow that and someone within a scarcity mindset be like, look how far away I am from my goal, fuck them, envy issues. But the flip side of envy is inspiration. So if you just flip that switch and go, I'm following them because I want to be like them, you'll find your own way on the path, you know, but you'll start to see from that exposure point of view, it's like, oh, they don't snack at night. They don't drink as much as I do. Who is controlling my hand?
It's like, hold on a sec, they actually do what they say they do.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
They say they don't do this, and I have never seen them do that.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, they're just...
Why do I keep smoking meth?
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like, they're not having a pizza every Saturday night, or, you know.
So I think that can really help too. And you start to, because the way human beings learn is through mimicry, really. We just act like other people act, you know, and that's how we've evolved, really. Rituals and all that sort of stuff. So if you start to take on people's different perspectives and viewpoints, you start to see how differently they see the world. And again, it comes down, like, what's so good, you have to be responsible with it, to your point about social media.
Yeah.
But what's so good about social media is that, based on this line of thinking, you can become whoever you want to be if you follow the right people, you know?
I think, and we see that a lot, like, I follow a lot of people who I guess have made something of themselves from either not much or it's a complete shift to what they used to be, and they all say that, and it can feel so far away.
Yes.
Like, it's like, well, actually, you want to do it, and then people's inherent response is, no way I can do that.
Yeah.
Or like, nah, that'd be way too hard, or this and that. And it's like, well, it's not like you have to wake up tomorrow and be that person. But you want to learn more, you might read for 20 minutes tonight, and it may not be Harry Potter. It might be like an actual an info book or an article or this, and you slowly make the transition over time. Like, no one wakes up the person who they are now. It's gradual and slow.
Totally.
Which is what we preach to clients, obviously, is like, just put the brakes on and we're going to slowly get there. And slow progress obviously is not marketable, but it's it's what works.
Yeah, and do it because it's fun. Like, that's the thing. The thing that's coming up for me the most in the counselling world is like, how do I find my purpose? Yeah. And I'm like, there's no such thing. You don't look under a tree and go, oh shit, there it is.
Yeah.
You create it, based upon what you do every day.
Yeah.
And
what you enjoy doing. Yeah.
For me, it's writing. I just enjoy to write, I like the fact that I can sell it as a product as well, but I do it because I just enjoy. I've been writing ever since I was 4. I just like doing it. And I think you will obviously get good. There's a really good book called Mastery, and the author of the book said, practice isn't something you do, it's something that you are. So, like, obviously the more you do something, the better you'll get at it, but you're not doing it to be better at it, you're doing it because it's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to your point on the environment, it's like, we always say to people, like, the more time you spend at the gym, and there's like, the more you'll pick up, the more you'll learn, just without even realizing yourself. Oh, this person's here at 6 a.m. 4 times a week. Yeah. No wonder they're the member of the month and they're doing this. It's like, maybe I should be a little bit more consistent. Or I like training with this person for this reason. And we were speaking about nutrition. I had no idea that she has a green smoothie every morning. Maybe I should probably, not have toast and have a green smoothie. And without even, you don't even have to have that conversation with yourself on the drive home, but you might wake up tomorrow and just pour in your protein, pour in your almond milk, and then you're like, oh, I'm having a smoothie in the morning now. Yeah. And that environment is so important. Yeah. I think.
Feels better.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, have fun. Like, you're here for 85 years, like, try some things, have a go.
Yeah. Just one more thing that I know pops up all the time.
Yeah.
You mentioned envy before. So, what about those people so Ben just used the positive side of that. So, like, being motivated by the person next to you. How about if the person next to you, you find that demotivates you? Like, it's
almost just as common, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean,
any tips?
It's tough because envy makes sense, because we are, it's impossible not to compare ourselves to other people. So I love, like, spiritual social media things like, hey, don't compare yourself. It's like, okay, don't think of an elephant. It's like, all right, impossible. Hey, just be in the moment.
Yeah. We do say it is the thief of all joy.
Comparison.
Yeah. It is. Like, it is. And we do it because we're constantly trying to figure out our place in the environment. Are we safe? You know, why is she looking there? Like, why is she wearing this? You know, why am I not one of them? Because if you're not a sheep, you could die. You know, you're alone. That's why we have a fear of public speaking, because if I'm talking to the group, then I'm not a part of the group. So it's all very, very deep in our wiring. But I think, to your point, like how to deal with envy.
Like, how can we shift it?
Yeah. It's hard because when someone's better than you, the implicit idea is that they're judging you, because it's kind of like, well, they're better than me. If I say to myself I'm not as good as they are, well, then clearly they're better than me. It doesn't feel good. But again, I think it comes down to that exposure idea that we spoke about before, you know, and I really like that because we all came to that awareness in this podcast. Like, I didn't fucking know that. You know, I think that's awesome. If we can gradually expose ourselves to different ideas and then recognize that, like I said before, the flip side of envy is inspiration. It's like, yes, you're not that far. Yes, you're not where you are and who you could be, but you can also do something about it. And you will feel better, you know?
You know how that, I guess, how that comes to us a lot in the classes is like, I'm not as fit as the other, you know, like 3 people who I trained with. And every time I'll say, stop, ask them, how long have you been here? 3 years. How long have you trained? 2 years. How long have you trained? Since the park.
Yeah.
And I'm like, they've all, you know, everyone started where you started.
Yes.
You know, like they're just a little bit ahead, but it doesn't mean that you're any worse off or you're behind, because if we rewound the clock to the park, they were whinging about running too. Like it's just all part of the process. It's not like you can just speed it up, which everyone's in such a hurry. You're like, I want it tomorrow. It's like, God, it doesn't work that way. Like, and it's hard.
3 days shipping, guys.
Exactly. Yeah.
By the time that people come to us, some people are desperate, and some people, like, they just want it to happen so badly that, like, if we pour water on the fire, it's like, it's like, I want them to still be motivated but not completely disheartened that in fact it may take 12 months.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
and then
brutal.
the thing is, like, I mean, how are you today in comparison to who you were yesterday? Like, yesterday, did you go to the park? No. So will you go to the park yesterday? Well done.
Yeah.
You know, just because you smoke 20 packets of cigarettes today, try to smoke 19 tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's a win.
Yeah, and that's
absolutely.
very much in line with our coaching style. Is not, you know, like, can you give me a meal plan? And I'm like, no, I can't.
Yeah.
And they say, why not? I'm like, because they don't work.
Yeah.
Like, yes, they work, but they don't work.
Yeah.
You know, anyone can follow a low-calorie meal plan for 28 days and be like, look at this, before and after, amazing, I've lost 6 kgs and I'm really happy. And then in 12 months, it's like, yeah, that worked really well. And I'm like, did it? Because now we're back to where we started.
Yes.
You know, and it's that slow process, which is like, funnily enough, it's the fastest way to get there, but it's like probably the most demotivating thing to hear in the moment.
This is such a good point. I mean, I was having a conversation with a client of mine yesterday about meditation. So he's always wants to do things. He wants to do this and then do this. He wants to be a singing guy, and then he wants to be a dancer, and he wants to find his purpose, and he wants to, like, do all these things.
We know these people.
Yeah. He's a lovely guy, but he's just like, I know I can just really give myself to the world and be the best person I can be. And very quickly, it's just like, okay, you have an issue with being still.
Yeah,
okay,
stop.
let's just relax.
Yeah.
Okay. And so we get him to do 5 minutes. I don't even call it meditation, right? I just say, just sit, close your eyes, don't move for 5 minutes. And within a minute, I know this is just audio, but he's like pulling the earphones out and doing this, and like everything's loud. He literally within 70 seconds was moving and everything. And at the very end, he's like, oh, God, I mean, that's just painful. I'm like, what's painful? It's like, well, it's just so basic and I can't do it. It's just like, well, it's basic for monks. It's not basic for you.
Yeah.
It's very hard for you.
Yeah.
And he used to be a chef. And I was like, if you're going to try to get me to cook anything harder than pancakes, I'll fuck it up. I'm so bad at cooking.
Yeah.
But he can make a multi-layered jelly cake. Like, I can't do that, you know?
And I was actually saying to Dan probably the other day that, and my parents actually, is like, we as coaches, we focus almost all the time on what limits the client rather than what they already do well and improving that. And, I was just like, God, because it's like, the question is always, what do you think is not ideal at the moment? Or, what do you think is holding you back? Let's focus on that rather than what do you think you have in your life at the moment that is working well towards this. It's like, oh, I just love training. I find training really easy. I'm training 3 times a week. Cool. Why don't we up it to 4? And just I love walking the dog every morning at 6. Like, it's great alone time. It's like, cool. How about we add another 20 minutes? Like, rather than potentially addressing that one thing that's like, always have a Kit Kat after dinner, and they just can't stop that.
So true. That is such a brilliant point. People want to be perfect, and they can't seem to handle progress.
It's like, it's easy to do what you do well.
Yeah.
Like, that's comfortable. Like,
Exactly.
I love training. If you told me to train for an extra half an hour a day, I'd be like,
Sweet.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's like, but if you told me that I had to do the accounting spreadsheets for half an hour a day, I'd be like, oh my God, my life sucks.
Yeah,
This is-
exactly right.
Like, this is so hard.
Because this is the thing, right? So when you're talking about like healthy eating habits, which is obviously like a big thing in your area, what I'm interested in is the fact that like addiction to food or alcohol, for example, it makes sense to me. Boredom sucks.
Yeah.
I can't stand boredom. I'm much more likely to eat shit food when I'm bored. The addiction makes sense. It's not like, oh God, I shouldn't be eating. It's like, why? I mean, you're bored. Boredom sucks. Eat a pizza.
Yeah.
The fact is, there's nothing else going on in your life in that moment that's more filling and exciting than the pizza.
Than the food.
So why not try to lift up the sense of positivity as opposed to trying to dispense with the very, very fair negativity? It's like if I'm bored or if I'm eating emotionally, which was a massive thing for me, that makes sense because I was going through some pain,
Yeah.
So why not, instead of being like, okay, I should just not be doing this, it's like you're doing it for a reason, mate. It's a coping strategy.
And if you focus on it, like
Just gets worse.
I dare you not to think of an elephant. It's like all I can think about now, the flapping ears. Like, if you've got the Tim Tams in the fridge and you struggle with those, that it's hard for you to have that in the house, and all you can think about are the Tim Tams. It's probably not the sugar.
Yes.
Like, it's the feeling that it gives you. It's like, oh, I'm happy now. Like,
Yes.
that was good. And then instantly the regret of like, shouldn't have done that. Ben's going to be pissed.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, I won't be pissed. But, it's that...
I'll kick you.
Like, it's that accountability to other people rather than themselves.
Exactly, yeah.
And you both just said it, and I think that's the biggest problem. People aren't actually aware of it. So, like, just take a second.
Are they not aware of it, or do they choose not to be aware of it? Because, as we were talking about earlier, it's a tough conversation to have with yourself.
Yeah. But again, due to exposure. So we sit here every night. Well, not us, but I'm just using this as an example. That was going to sound bad. Turn the television on, watch MasterChef, and they're cooking God knows what desserts.
Delicious stuff. Yeah.
So we go to the pantry and we grab a block of chocolate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're eating. We're watching food. We're hungry. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Pleasure.
Exactly right. I think when it comes to that style of thinking, and to your point, like if you're always thinking about it, so let's just say, for everyone, if you're listening, just close your eyes or just visualize this. You've got this like neutrality base rate of emotion, and then you feel bored, so you go down a little bit, and then you externally try to bring you back up to neutral with a Tim Tam or something, or with a pizza, for example, and that does that.
That would do it for me.
Yeah, 100%. I'm thinking about it right now. About 2 secs. And that'll do it, because the mind tries to always achieve a state of equilibrium. So you do that, but what we want to do is raise it within yourself. And we know that fulfillment can come about through doing things that are fulfilling, or just taking away things that cue that, which is another point of habit change. It's like, if you want to stop doing that, get rid of the cue.
Take the Tim Tams out of the house.
Take
Makes it
things
a
out
lot
of the
easier.
house. Maybe you do something
No one
else,
wants
watch
Tim
TV.
Tam, like no one I know or who I've ever coached wants Tim Tams so badly that they drive to Coles and buy some at 10 o'clock at night. But if they're in the house and you open the fridge and there they are at eye level,
It's on.
and the packet's open, you're like,
Just one.
I'll have one.
Just one.
And then it's 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, I need another packet.
what about the concept of like in 2020, everything has to be like now. It's
instant.
really easy. I can order anything on my phone. I can even pay for it later.
Uber Eats upsets me.
Uber Eats. What about Zip Pay? Just
It's on. isn't
credit
it?
cards, this and that. delayed gratification.
Yes.
Like the one thing, like the one industry almost that you can't zip pay or,
Yeah.
you know, like order it instantly is your health.
Yeah.
That it's like as much as everything changes.
Not yet.
Not
We'll see
yet.
what like in 20 years time. We'll all be out of a job.
Yeah.
Unless we all have 50 grand and get lipo.
Yeah.
But like in what, like how can people become better at delaying the gratification and enjoying the process rather than just getting hung up on the result? Because I mean, that's how we all know results to come easiest is when
Yep.
you're not focused on it, is when you're focused on the process.
Well, I think that question is a brilliant question. And I think it again comes down to what it's weighed up against. So for me, for example, and I'll just use myself as an anecdote right now, when I have eaten healthily the night before, I wake up 1 to 2 hours earlier because my body isn't in as much physical stress dealing with all the shit that I put in it. So, and when I get up early and I move into my first part of the routine, I feel so fulfilled. And so what I do is I make sure that I write down, after my journaling, I write down, this is the result of eating healthily the night before. Now, I know every night for me is a daily struggle. Every night when we're watching a podcast or whatever it is, it's like, oh, I could fucking get on Uber Eats right now. Like,
Smash some ice cream.
I don't know if I'll ever get rid of that little voice that just wants to pump it in at that time. Hopefully I will. But, you know, I know that having done enough days now of what's fulfilling the next morning, that extra positivity is what I'm chasing now. So I think when it comes to like postponing gratification, which is obviously a major predictor of success and in any facet, the question again for me is like, it's not that you shouldn't be eating the shit food the night before. It's you don't have a reason not to. And if you have that why, again, really come full circle here, that's more rewarding than the pizza in that moment, start chasing that, you know?
And that, I mean, I guess that comes to the fact when, like, you can tell when people have the realization that, in fact, the dress size or the pant size wasn't that important because they've struggled to do it long term. That's like, actually, it didn't really change my life that much. You know, like, people still viewed me as me. You know, I didn't get more Instagram likes or, you know, like, I was able to maybe move a little bit better, but no one really cares about that, you know. And it's like, okay, maybe my why was off. And, you know, our longest clients are clients who have said like, oh, I know I need to do this because it makes me feel good.
Well, that's the thing. In life, we are chasing neurochemistry. It's got nothing to do with socio-cultural like ideas and things that are happening right now. We're just chasing neurochemistry. We're just an animal wearing shoes. You know, the best thing that is secreted from the brain is dopamine. This feeling that you are moving towards a goal. Life is just one big journey. Serotonin is temporary satisfaction, but ultimately you got to get back into it. So you just want to be in this constant state of, I'm almost there. And if you think about postponed gratification, if I have a pizza at night, I get there temporarily, but then I'm really far back.
Oh.
So if I can get to that point where my life is just one big state of progression, I'm happy for the rest of my life. That's all I need, you know? It's just neurochemistry.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, that's probably why people enjoy training so much is that, I can throw 10 kilos on. I'm a little bit stronger. I can do a little bit more of this, or, you know, like I can run a bit further, jump a little bit higher, or, you know, in anything else. I worked hard, got the promotion, now I want another one. Yeah. And, yes, I think that's...
I did my bit for the day.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I ticked that box. But I think, like, just to bring it all the way back around is that, you know, that why is like, that is step number one. And if you're not really crystal clear on that, like, it can change, you know, like my why now is way different to 12 years ago, but it's still important to have that in the back of your mind. And if it's not strong enough, it makes everything else a lot harder. Yeah. You know, like if it's just purely about, on that beach, I'm going to be looking sexy, and then I'm going to post it to Instagram, I'll crack the ton for sure. It's like...
You get 999.
If that's it, you know, and that's like, perception is reality. Like, if that's important to you, then that is fine. Yeah. It's just that for the most part, the people who we've spoken to who that is important to, they typically struggle. Like, it's more about that, you know, my back's a bit sore, living in pain, I sit at a desk for too long, I want to be able to go skiing.
Yeah.
And like that's a lot more powerful, is that, you know, and it essentially is chasing that pleasure of a family holiday compared to sitting at your chair and being like, oh, my hips are tight.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what we know, like just changing your habits, your behaviors, identifying more as that fit, healthy person. That's where that's where that process comes from.
I mean, we get lost in the external measurements of success, you know, but... Yeah. So for me, you know, externally in this day and age, you know, we all want the six pack and we all want $1 billion and a yacht. If we were living 1,000 years ago, you know, I might want to be the best blacksmith in the village. You know, it's if you take all of that
bravest
shit
knight.
out, bravest knight, get the princess, Rapunzel. But like, if you take all of the external stuff out and come to view fulfillment in life as just biology, you know, the way to get it is just progress, seeing progress for the rest of your life.
And if you want to know what's important, like if you listen to your grandparents or any successful older person who's said like, none of that matters, it's about the people who you do it with.
How much sex you had.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's like how quality your experiences are, rather than you worked really hard and you got that maybe at the end of the day you're going to be like, you know what, I've probably put a little bit too much effort into that.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's going to be hard to tell until you're 80.
Yeah.
You know, like what you look back and go, it probably didn't matter that much that I squatted 160 rather than 150 though, did it?
You just wasted all the
Yeah. It's just, but it's the process and the... it's the experiences that then shape what you are confident and able to do as a result of the way you manifested it as a young adult.
Mm.
Yeah. But I think one thing that we should touch on again just before we go is being honest with your why. Like you said before, like, do you want a six pack? If you do, that's okay.
Totally.
Yeah.
That's okay. Whereas I think people are very...
Who am I to tell you that's stupid?
Yeah.
Number one is because what I tell you, you might think, oh, that's dumb. Why does he want that? It's like,
so I think people are scared.
Yeah.
Like, because maybe they don't necessarily want what the next person does, or they think what they want is wrong. Because someone else thinks it's stupid.
Yeah.
Because the conversation you had, with your neighbour last week.
Yes.
Cookie cutter response is, I want to lose weight and tone up. And I'm like, do you actually? Yeah. Because, like the trade-off to that for someone who's already quite lean is like, that's tough. Like that's a fair bit of restriction.
I'm not giving up a meal.
Yeah, no way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm happy.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think explaining to clients the trade-offs of like, this is possible, but it's, like it's pretty tough, and it may not be realistic for a mum of two who works full-time, and like, do you really want to be weighing and measuring and calorie tracking and this and that? Like that's tough.
I think one thing that I get my clients to do is journal about, so I give them a journal. It's called What Does the Wanting Want?
Yeah. And
we'll have a discussion about it over a call, for example, and initially it'll be external things, fame, and it really is the case, fame, success, the house, any derivative of that,
Anyone who's famous, most people don't want to be famous.
Nah, exactly. Exactly.
Like, God, if I could have everything else but the fame, it'd be great.
Yeah. But most time, or, to bring it down, it's the body or whatever it is, and then we just do a quick, simple exercise, and we, close our eyes and we, kind of ask ourselves what it would feel like to have that. And then very quickly they realize that it's actually the emotion that they want. It's not the stuff that they think they need to get the emotion.
Yeah.
And then the next
accomplishment.
It's just the feeling. It's like, I just want to feel like this. I want to feel worthwhile, And then you can have, the next question is obviously, well, how have you felt like that before? And very quickly we start to have a conversation about things that made the time fly, like minutes, hours into minutes when we were children. It was playing, it was creating, it was dancing, it was doing all that sort of stuff, So, and to the point about maintenance, how do we avoid burnout? It has to be fun. We trained all the time because we were fucking crazy, but it was also fun. We were also
time. I never hated it.
Of fun.
Yeah.
We're also playing FIFA and eating shit food. Like, all of that was fun.
We do 1 million pull-ups,
Yeah.
eat pizza, play FIFA.
Yeah, it was always just chins and FIFA.
Yeah.
But it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And then when you lose that sense of childlike awe and wonder and fun in whatever you're doing, it becomes very monotonous very fast. So if you remind yourself that you're chasing the emotion, you can put yourself onto like a slow, gradual process.
All right. Well, we might wrap it up there. It's probably our longest podcast ever. We are running the risk of
We'll cut it out.
me waking up, but we might have to get you on again. Tom, we might ask some members if they have any questions.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
gonna love you.
Yeah. Thanks very much for coming on.
Loved it.
Also,
Always a pleasure to hang out with two mates. So
yeah. Also, where can they find you? I've heard people ask this on podcasts. I've never had to ask anyone.
Yeah.
So, Tom, where can people find you?
yeah, so if you just look up Big Prong 69, you'll find me on all the
At Hotmail.
at askjeeves.org. Now it's just my name, Tom Ahern, and you can find me anywhere you like. I mean, I've got TikTok now.
Do you?
I'm even on the TikTok one. I'm not doing the dancing stuff.
I can't get on board with it.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm like, I feel like it's boring. Some of the stuff's clever, but whatever.
Yeah,
don't
it's
have
mostly
time.
just. I'm just like, okay, if it kicks off, I want to have a head start.
Yeah, fair enough. I guess you could have your toe in the water.
Tell the water. Yeah, no, but just Tom Ahern, just my name. It's all good.
Perfect. All right. See you next time.
Bye, guys.